What's going on, everybody? It's Jamie,
And John,
and welcome to the A-To-Zed Reseller podcast. I guess we're already on episode 4. It's going by pretty quick, yeah?
time's flying, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. If you add up, the first 4 that we did on my channel before we officially launched this, that's we're getting there. We're almost in double digits, but it's been fun. How's your week been? Good?
Yeah, not bad. I mean, it's been a little bit of a whirlwind of a week. Just a lot of stuff going on, in the personal life and work and stuff. But I mean, overall, it's not bad, not bad. Can't complain, really.
Nice, awesome. Yeah, I'm still living in a bit of chaos. I keep bringing in more things into my house, and a lot of the things are things I wouldn't generally pick up that are bigger, like for displays and stuff for this antique booth I'm ramping up towards.
Right.
Um, yeah, so I'm hoping once that goes, this stuff can leave my house, and then so I'm actually gonna take a lot of my inventory out of Poshmark and eBay and continuously cycle through too. So I should be emptying out a lot of my inventory. So my numbers will go way down online, but it'll give me the opportunity, to source more right now, which is kind of cool. But
Yeah,
it's been a little chaotic around here, just trying to figure out the flow of things and space.
yeah, I get that for sure. I mean, um, when I was first kind of starting this out, I was just operating out of a hallway closet, and then I was operating out of our house. When we first moved into the new house, but very quickly it was like, okay, I need more space.
Yeah.
Luckily, I was able to get a storage unit just down across the street from me, basically, which is great. So it's super convenient. But yeah, it's hard, man, when you start running out of space or you start getting things a little bit too cluttered. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm all about the feng shui, so I need some energy flow.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think we feel like that a lot of times. And I honestly dislike when my reselling stuff clutters up our living space. I don't like that at all. And it makes me uncomfortable, when people come over and I'm like, oh, sorry, I've got a pile of clothes there or whatever, or this thing that I was working on. I don't like that. So I try not to do that. But right now it's just been overwhelming for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think one of the topics we were going to get in this week is we're just really coming to the end of Q4, or sorry, Q4. Geez, not quite Q1, which seems like Q4 was just yesterday. I guess maybe that's what was on my brain there. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. We're already through the first quarter of the year. For me, I think numbers have been steady, but when I looked at my QuickBooks numbers, down a lot down actually. But how about you? Overall, have you been up, down, about the same, kind of what you expected for the first quarter?
I kind of feel the same. I think it's been steady, but probably down a little bit. I mean, it's hard for me to say really. Like, I'm definitely down from Q4. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
that makes sense. But the reality is, I also ramped up a lot last year. So when comparing to Q1 of last year, I'm up, but it was a different scale. So it's not really a fair comparison. But I do feel like things are down a little bit, maybe from where I would expect them to be. But I think a lot of that is maybe just it's been a little bit tough in the economy the last little while. We're in Canada, heating costs, extra costs, things like that. I mean, wintertime's not great for selling. I think people are maybe making more cost efficient options and buys. Like, I'm definitely seeing my average sale price is lower. I wouldn't say my volume is down a whole lot, but definitely that average sale price is a little bit lower. And I don't think it's got to do with the quality of the items I'm listing. I think people are just choosing to, like, those higher end items aren't moving quite as fast. I think the buyer pool for those items has gone down some.
it has, and I've noticed myself accepting offers on higher end items at lower values. I know I had a pair of shoes go out this week that I took an $80 offer on, which is good, but I
Yeah,
expected to get like 120, maybe $100 out of them.
yeah,
I wasn't into them a lot of money, but that's the sort of thing I'm noticing. And I don't really feel like some of the offers, I didn't really feel like it was a low ball offer. I honestly thought, oh, I haven't got much interest in this. This isn't a bad offer. We might have countered back and forth a little bit, but I'm doing that a little bit more and more, just kind of letting stuff go. But in a different situation than potentially you, right? For me, I need to sell things to keep moving, because I don't have another, I do have other sources of income. I have another side hustle that I do. We have a business with my wife. I have savings. There's places I can draw money from, but to keep this reselling thing going for me is full time. I've got to let stuff go sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a very different dynamic. I do have the luxury of kind of holding on to things a little bit more, but in the same vein, though, I have been experiencing the same. I've been letting things go, for a little bit less. I haven't been sending out super aggressive offers too much, maybe on some items, but I've definitely been open to offers that I maybe wouldn't have been 3 months ago. So like if I have something listed for $90 and someone offers me 50, I'll actually, that's a little low, but it's not really a low ball offer. Like that's something I would actually even consider depending on the item, right?
Yeah.
So if I've had it for a while, maybe I'm going to counter back at 75 and see what happens. But I don't know. I'm a little more apt these days to be like, I'm going to take that $50.
Yep. Yeah. I know on Poshmark, it doesn't cross my mind nearly as much, to be honest, just because of the way the platform is run. But on eBay, when somebody offers me one of those, maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't offers, first thing I do is go look at their profile. Is this a legitimate person with credibility? They've been on this platform for a while. Do they have feedback? Because a lot of times that's also where you can get burned, right? Those people are dropping those offers that are like, they're throwing the lure out there, and if you don't look at what it is, sometimes it can bite you, and that's where you get like the scammers. But yeah, that's my first thing. I make sure that it's an actual decent person sending me an offer, and I feel comfortable, and then then it starts rolling around in my head whether it's worth it or not.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing that factors into that for me is, especially in clothing, I'm starting to get some repeat buyers. Like, well, clothing and video games, I guess, are both kind of categories you're likely to get repeat buyers in because, they're looking for those like items. So obviously I'm going to make better deals with people who've bought from me before and will probably continue to buy from me. So that's where like Poshmark, especially bundling and stuff comes in and all that things go a little cheaper. But I've definitely noticed, I think so far this year, I've gotten, maybe 5, 6 or 7 repeat buyers on eBay on video game stuff where it's like, oh, sweet, this person's buying more things, they're coming back. And so I do treat those people good. I'll take 10, 15% less for them, no questions asked, because they're going to help me get volume moving.
Yeah, for sure. I think that makes a lot of sense. And as far as going back to the Q1 thing just for a second,
Yeah.
I really feel like for me, if diversifying, I know you sell on multiple platforms as well, but for me, I think that was key in this first quarter, to have respectable numbers, even though they're not the same numbers I had hoped for. In the prior year, I would say this time last year I was getting $800 to $1,000 a week payout on eBay alone. Now it's like $400 to $600, but I have like these other platforms, filling in the gaps. If I didn't have those numbers wouldn't be so good. Poshmark Canada is pretty steady, but then I find it competes with the US. They go back and forth. So those numbers, it's so hard to say. I would have to look at them as a whole to see if it's better than last year, but I think it's still very consistent. It might be down a little bit, but yeah, I think diversity in this quarter was definitely key for me.
Yeah, no, good stuff. But what do you think? What do you think is going to happen in Q2? I mean, I think we're both kind of in the same boat here as far as what Q1 has looked like.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic for Q2. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the thing about the end of Q2 is, whether or not you believe in the summer slowdown. I haven't really felt that too bad in the past, but this year's been a little bit different already than past years. So I don't know. Normally, I do find spring is pretty good. Like I do find this is when things start to pick up. It's also, for me, I can source more yard sales. So a lot of times I'm getting more electronics and hard goods. And for my personal business, or my eBay anyway, I've really noticed this last year, I've dipped so deep into clothing. I never really considered myself a clothing reseller, or like, as I didn't never like thought of myself like that, but I've had lots of people reach out to me saying, "Hey, since you're a clothing reseller," or even, talking to different people who do YouTube as well, they sort of just look at me that way. And I'm like, wow, I really thought I sold a lot more hard goods and whatever. And then I start thinking about it. It's like, you know what? My business model the last year has been clothing, a lot of clothing.
Yeah.
But yard sales does give me that opportunity to buy a lot more hard goods, and I'm excited about that because those typically have bigger numbers for, you're not looking at like $20-$30 items. A lot of times they're $50 to $100 items, so that helps.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm right there with you. I was going to answer that the exact same way. So you took the words right out of my mouth. There's more sourcing opportunities coming up in the next quarter, which obviously, helps Q2 as well. And people do start having a little bit more money, not having to pay like heating expenses and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think for me, that helps to that kind of helps to counteract that summer slowdown. If it's going to happen, I think that it's likely it would happen to me if I wasn't doing more sourcing and stuff and ramping up in the spring to prepare for that, getting more listings up. So I guess I never really noticed a summer slowdown because around those same times prior to that, like Q2 of last year and the plan for this year as well, is always like use that as a growth period and ramp up listings and diversify, do all those things. So yeah, I guess maybe that protects against a summer slowdown to some degree, just doing more volume, having maybe not better items, but higher average sale price items, like you say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's sort of the goal anyway. You never really know how things are going to play out. And, I think technically I don't think nobody's actually called what we're going through a recession, even though that we're always, on the pivot there. But yeah, as long as nothing too crazy happens, I know, we're expected to have here in Canada anyway. What is it, April 1st? We're supposed to get more of the carbon tax if that goes through.
Right.
That could hurt some people's pockets for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, nobody wants to officially call it a recession, but hey, I'm a numbers guy, and it's pretty clear if you look at the trends of the numbers over the last couple of years, things aren't what they were. And I think, I think people are still cautiously optimistic that they can spend some money and not get completely caught with their pants down. But right now, I'm doubling down on paying debt and, taking care of those things so that if things get even worse, I do have some spending power if something comes up. So I don't know where I'm at, but yeah, I think it's a recession.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that way too. It's like I said, just it's never really been put in nobody's sounded the alarms yet, right? But it feels that way for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and being that people buy different these days, do you feel like there's so many opportunities now for live selling? There always kind of has been in some way, right? Like eBay's always had auctions. That's a form of live selling. I have heard different people say they're thinking about doing the in-person auctions as well. I don't know if they actually will jump on board. We have Whatnot. Poshmark also does lives. I don't know if you participate in any of those. Potentially, I'm thinking maybe eBay or silent shows. But what are your thoughts on live selling going into the rest of the year here? Is it something you're going to be into?
It's something I've dabbled with. And I guess kind of as like a smaller store, smaller, social media presence and all the rest. I can't really say for sure what my thoughts are on live selling because I know that obviously somebody like, I think we both watch his channel, somebody like ADH Dave, Dave's going to go on Whatnot and he's going to move a bunch of stuff. But I mean, he's also been building a presence for the last few years, and he has, probably 10,000 people that can get into one of his, Whatnot shows or something like that. So it's easier for somebody with a social media presence to do that. Myself, obviously being a small channel and a small social media presence, like I'm not going to have the same level of success. So it'd be easy for me to judge it harshly. So I don't want to do that, but I have been getting into like silent shows pretty regularly now, like especially in the last little while with Posh Sidekick and, some of the things that have unfolded there. Having a few more extra credits per month to be able to go ahead and get silent shows going and scheduling those so that they can run while I'm doing something else. I like that. I don't make a lot of sales from it. I've probably only sold a handful of things from those silent shows, but if nothing else, I feel like it gets eyes on your closet, even if it is only a few people. Maybe they look, they don't really like what you're selling, but then they're right there. They might go check out what else you have. So
Yeah.
I don't know. If I was actually doing it live and like putting in the effort to like be there and pull everything and do it in person, I think I probably would get disappointed and discouraged if things weren't working well. But as far as those silent shows go, I mean, it really takes me no time at all to set them up and then just let them run while I do something else. So
Yeah, for sure. And I've definitely utilized on Poshmark the silent shows. Try to do 2 or 3 a week on both .ca and .com. And yeah, I don't find I get sales from the shows, but I do find the day after the show, it must really do something still with the algorithm where you get extra ice, because I find if I don't do them, I do find a dip in sales. Now this is all just me guessing,
right.
but it does seem to sort of help get eyes on your closet. So that's definitely a good thing. As far as eBay, do you do eBay auctions anymore, or like it really depends on the item? I will do them, but I don't like to unless I'm really not sure about. I either have to really not be sure about what I have, or have a whole bunch of something that's not worth much that I'm just willing to get rid of in a lot.
Yeah, I've only done a handful of eBay auctions, and they definitely have their time and place. But for me, where I am selling mostly clothing and mostly video games, where I'm confident in understanding the value and how long I'd be willing to sit on those things, I don't ever really find myself in a position where I'm like, you know what, I'll just throw that on auction and see what happens. There's definitely a place for that. And I've got a couple of items that maybe after a little while longer, maybe I will just like change them up and put them on auction. And I mean, I'm gonna make money,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I guess it also goes back to another thing, like being like we talked about earlier. I'm part time at this. I don't rely on this income necessarily, so it's okay if something sits a little bit longer. Maybe I would pick things up with that strategy of running it at auction, maybe knowing I don't get as much money for it, but still making a profit if I knew I was going to get that good fast turnover and have money rolling in constantly, if
Yeah.
that was a business model. But yeah, for now, a long-winded way of saying I don't really, but I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I know I've just been trying my hand at Whatnot again, which is obviously another live format selling platform. Now I had done the Canadian Whatnot before, and it was going okay, but it was getting a lot of complaints because the majority of the people on there are American, and the shipping was just basically almost like eliminating most sales. Unless I sold a whole bunch to somebody where it was combined together and that worked out, that was fine. Now doing it's still on Whatnot. Everything is the same except for I have a US address set up, so I'm getting United States Postal Service labels.
Right.
What I'm finding the problem is now I've only done 2 auctions. The first one I think was reasonably successful. The second one was a dumpster fire. It did not go well, but it was still fun. It was a learning experience. I decided to price items a little higher because the one thing about a cross-border shipper is after everything's said and done, I still have to pay an extra 90 cents on top to get that across the border. So you don't want to sell something for a couple dollars knowing you're going to spend another dollar shipping it, even though the shipping label is provided.
Right.
So I think I tried to do a little bit too high. I think I did DVDs for like 15 for $5 US, thinking, oh, that would be enough, but only sold a couple because, they were just too high for Whatnot. So yeah, Whatnot's tough. Part of it, like you said, is building an audience of people who want to come buy your stuff. And the other thing is, if you don't have that, the people who are going to pop in, they want things super cheap. So,
Right.
I'm not willing to give stuff away for nothing because, it's cost your time. You paid for the stuff. There are things you can purposely pick up that you don't have a lot of money in that you could make okay money in, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's a totally different beast for sure. And I do think you have to build up an audience to some extent on platforms like that. See, where Poshmark, you can do Poshmark Live, same thing as you do there. I've only tried to do the live Poshmark once, I think, and it was okay. It was very similar. I had people watch in and out. Um, but it took up your time, right? It took me, I think, 45 minutes to an hour to sit there. I didn't sell, I think I sold one hat or something. It was like a hat one, same thing. I think you really would have to build up an audience to
Yeah.
be successful in live selling on that platform too.
Yeah, I think like the Poshmark one, like I think would kind of be fun to do, but there's two obstacles that I can think of right away. Number one is just the time. I can't justify putting the time into it if I didn't make a sale.
Yeah.
The other thing also, now that I've got all of my inventory not in my house and it's in another location, even though it is only a minute away, I'd have to pull everything, remember all of the inventory locations and things like that, get everything all set up, get ready for the live show. Whatever doesn't sell, get bagged back up, boxed back up, whatever, put it right back down in inventory. And so it's not just the time of the show itself, there'd be a lot of prep work and then after work to do. And I feel like I'd rather just be sitting on my couch.
Yeah.
But that's, you know,
Yeah, that makes sense. And that probably is part of the difference. A lot of times, trust me, I'd rather be sitting on my couch too, but I've got a little more free time than you during the day, right? I do a lot of sourcing. I do a lot of other things. It gives me more free time to edit videos. But to take 45 minutes to an hour out of my afternoon to set up a Whatnot show or a Poshmark live show isn't really out of the question. It's something that I could probably commit to once a week for a while still to see how it plays out. But yeah, if it is just your extra free time, you only have so much of that free time. So you want to make the most of it. And if you're not going to only make a few dollars, probably isn't worth your time.
yeah, for sure. No, I mean, hey, if I was full time, I probably would do it, and it would be more so just for the fun of it, and I'd definitely be more open to testing it out. But
Yeah, and I did find it enjoyable. The DVD one, even though I didn't sell a lot, I had I think a couple people who watch my YouTube channel. I can remember Oreo. I don't remember the other one right off the top of my head. I just his Whatnot name is the same as the YouTube name, so it just made more sense to me. So they were in there. They were asking me questions, chatting it up. They wanted to ask questions about the YouTube channel and stuff like that. So that was kind of fun. It just made it more interactive for me because otherwise I'm just kind of tossing things up, saying the most I possibly can about it, and it's like a little dead in the chat, right? So it's kind of fun having some interaction. So yeah, definitely it was still enjoyable. But
nice.
so yeah, we're talking about live selling, but what about actual selling on platforms? Have you had some sales this week that you're particularly proud of? The sale of the week, possibly?
Yeah, well, I've got a sale of the week and I've got an honorable mention.
Okay.
The sale of the week for me is a pair of True Religion men's jeans with the little flat pockets, in a men's 38-34. Just a really nice pair of jeans. True Religion, obviously, is just one of those brands that sells really, really well. For men's jeans especially, I don't know much about women's stuff. If I don't even know if they make women's stuff. They probably do. I just don't know anything about it. But the men's jeans, True Religion, I will always pick those up. And I found them at my regular thrift store. So after taxes, it comes to, I think, $7.88 is what my cost is after tax. And they sold for $69.99 within like 2 weeks. So that's just a great sale. And I don't see them very often, obviously, because I mean, if I did, that's all I would sell, right? That's huge profits. But yeah, I like that sale because I was whipping through the store really quick, just looking in certain sections. I was like, you know what? I got to go look at the jeans. I just got to go look at the jeans. And because I wasn't even going to, I was running kind of late for something, or I had a very limited amount of time, and I was like, no, I'll just do a quick skim. Very first pair of jeans I actually handle, that I pull out, say, oh, what's this? Is True Religion. So it's like, okay, trust your instinct, go do it if you got the time, look at the jeans. That was my lesson out of that one. So really nice profit at the end of it, $45 or something net profit, and kind of a cool little backstory. The what was the word I used earlier? Honorable mention. Wow, had a little brain fart moment there. The honorable mention for this week is some of the great course DVDs and books. That's what it's called, great courses. And so they're like DVDs, it's educational stuff, and it's got a little booklet that comes with it. And I sold a lot of 4 of them. They were like modern philosophy kind of subjects. and it wasn't huge money. It was only a $20 sale, but my buy cost on those was only $1.40. I had found a box of these at my local post office, and there was like almost 60 of them in this box, and they were just there. They've got like a bookshelf and a couple things, and you can purchase them by donation, and it just goes to charity or whatever. But the woman who works there, the main woman that works there, knows me really well. We chat all the time when I go in. She's just a super friendly woman. She's like, hey, you might like these. She kind of had them tucked around the corner so that they could be there for me when I got there. And so, yeah, it was just kind of one of those cool little network things, you know, just being nice to the postal workers. And, you know, I mean, you go in with 2 huge tote bags full of packages and stuff. Like, I'm sure that they don't always love everybody who comes in there with 50 things for them to scan, but I'm in there. I'm always really nice and respectful to them, and it paid off. So I just wanted to mention that one, even though it was a small sale.
Yeah, no, that's always fun when you get something like that or an opportunity is presented to you like that, for sure. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, so I have a sale of the week and then maybe a notable pickup because they kind of tie in together really nice. So I had picked up an Anaheim Mighty Ducks starter jersey about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And I listed it pretty high, knowing that it wouldn't sell as high as I listed it for because it was a size small. It was an adult size small, so not a great size, but a really great jersey. Sold for $60 with, like I said, pretty quickly within a week and a half, something like that. So I sold it. I don't even remember what I paid for it exactly. I know I paid up for it a bit, so I was maybe paid 15 to 20, somewhere in there. I can't remember if I had a coupon or what, but so I paid a bit, sold it really quick. And then just today, I was out with my wife, and we were at Goodwill, our local Goodwill, and I'm going through the t-shirts, and I see across from me this guy pick up an Anaheim Mighty Ducks jersey that's mixed in with the sweaters, and I'm like, oh man, hey, that's a really nice one. He's like, yeah. He's like, me and my son really loved Paul Kariya in the '90s. This is cool. And he flips it over. It's this one's, so the one I sold was a starter from the '90s. This is a CCM from the '90s with the reverse colorway. So this one was like the purple and teal, and the one that I sold was the white and the blue or teal kind of color.
Nice.
So I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So he's kind of telling me a backstory, and I can see he's him and Erhan. And then I think we started talking about something else, and as he's kind of walking over, I'm like, hey, actually, like, I just opened my phone up and showed him, hey, I actually just sold one just like this on eBay. I don't know what you're doing with it. And he's like, oh, like, I think it'll fit my son, but I'm not sure. And I'm like, so I'm kind of telling him like it's a nice jersey and just talking it up. And then we started talking. I think I started telling him about the Goodwill bins and all this other stuff. And then I go and shop with my wife. And before he leaves his store, he comes back over to me. He's like, you know what? This isn't going to fit my son. Like, do you think you would actually you would buy this? And I'm like, yeah, I think it was only like $8.40.
Nice.
Like, absolutely, I'm going to buy this. So I wound up taking the guy's information. I'm like, you know, if I ever find, you know, something, you know, I'll obviously get you something back. That'd be cool. But that was awesome. Like, so
yeah, that's sweet, man.
Yeah, I wound up with a very similar jersey. This one, the only thing with it is somebody cut the size tag out, but to me, that's not a huge deal. That used to make me a little bit nervous. But, you know, if you do a chest measurement and a length measurement, you can look at other people's and kind of gauge the size.
Yeah.
You can all go on the official websites, and they'll tell you what the chest size is. So you'll kind of know what you have anyway. Just depends how much work you want to do.
But honestly, even without looking up like what a certain brand would call that or whatever, I mean, when you as a clothing reseller, you'll get to know this. As a clothing reseller, no. But when you do enough and you know what those chest measurements usually are for certain sizes, I mean, you know, 23 across, you know, you could be like, hey, this jersey measures 23. That's probably like a large or something, you know, and you can just put that in there, be like, there's no tag, but this is what it measures at. It's probably around a large, depending on the brand or something. And, you know, I mean, I've never had anybody complain and they buy it and then be like, hey, you said it was a large. Well, I said it's probably around a large and brand specific. So I've never had that come up, but no, that's a cool story. I got to say, I'm a big fan of Paul Kariya as well. He was one of my favorite hockey players. So that is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was awesome too. And yeah. I do the same thing. I think in my listings, I'll put like fits like a small or fits like a whatever. No, or so no tags fits like whatever. Please see photos for details.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't know, like it, people don't look through the photos and they don't read. Like a lot of times, even if you put the measurements in there, they'll say, "Hey, what's the measurements?" It's like, um, yeah, they're in the pictures. Just scroll over.
3 times already today, I have answered a question about either material content or a measurement, where my response was, "These things are in the pictures."
Yep.
I don't know. I just don't. I'm not going to be. I'm not going to be mean about it, but I'm not going to be like super nice about it. Oh, sorry. Please take a look at picture number 7. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If you can't read or look at the photos, I'm just going to give you the blunt answer, which is please look at the pics.
Yep. I think
It's
that's
annoying,
fair.
but
It is. It is annoying. That kind of goes back to was it last week or the live? We were talking about that you're your own customer service. So you do have to
yeah,
be a little careful not to ruffle someone's feathers. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with saying like it's actually in the listing.
yeah.
Have a look. Yeah. I've said that the same
Please
thing.
go take a look.
Yeah. Yeah. And most people, well, first of all, most people aren't going to buy it anyway. You know what I mean? That's the truth of it. But then, I'll still get messages like, "Oops, I'm so sorry. I didn't even look." Like,
Oh yeah,
I know you
yeah,
didn't look. That's why you're
yeah.
asking me this.
Because you wouldn't have asked me had you looked.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
a lot of people do reply with that as well, and it's like, okay, yeah, no problem. Have a good day.
Yeah. So, I thought this would be a good topic to kind of round today out with. It's sort of just like, I guess you could, whether you're just getting into reselling or you've been doing it for a while, some people really don't understand how much money they're actually making. And I do get the odd time somebody message me or comment, because a lot of times when I'm doing like my what sold videos, I'm just saying what it sold for. I don't always break down the fees. I know you're much better at that. You'll say, in some of your videos, this is how much I'm actually going to make, or I've actually lost money, or I've just made a few dollars. You're really good at that. But I think it is important for people to understand how to break things down a little bit, and what fees you should associate. And then also, even though you're selling on a platform, there might be fees outside of the platform that you have to pay for, whether it's packing materials, um, anything really. There's could be all kinds of things. Maybe you're renting a space like you are. That's part of everything.
Yep.
So I thought understanding the actual profit you're making item might be a good thing to talk about here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I am very much to the penny, and I have a spreadsheet, and that's what I spiel off when I'm doing my what sold videos. So I say like I made $14.12 in profit after fees on this one and cost of goods and stuff. I don't expect that everybody should do that or even needs to do that, but I wanted to do that early on when I was starting out to make sure that I did fully understand. And because I'm just a numbers guy and enjoy this stuff, I've kept doing it just because
Yeah.
I mean, but but it's a good way to get to understand what you actually need to sell your item for to make money and make enough money that you're happy with doing it again. If you sold this today at $20, would you do it again tomorrow? Would you go buy that exact same item the next day and then the next day and again and again and again? Or is that not worth doing every day? And so that was kind of why I got into it. So I'm going to give another shout out to another YouTuber here, Chris Furlong. He's an Australian guy. I don't know if you watch any of his stuff. I actually first found his channel for the running content because he does throw a little bit of running content in there as well. But he's a young guy. I think he's probably late 20s, maybe close to 30. He started up a reselling business, and he gets really into the deep dives and does a good job of being very transparent about the obstacles, but then also the wins. So one of the things that he has done is shared like an actual profit and loss statement in his videos, where he's talking about exactly all of those things. What is your cost of goods? What is your actual postage cost? What are your shipping materials? You don't have to like say, oh, on this sale was a 40-cent box on 12 cents of bubble wrap. But in a monthly breakdown, understanding what did you spend on shipping this month or shipping materials this month. And at the end of it, knowing that, you've reached a certain operating margin. So, did you sell $5,000 worth of stuff in March, but you were only left with $600 profit? Because that's not a real great operating margin. You know, that's less than, what is that? That's like a little over 10%. Right? That's going to be hard to justify if that's what your operating margin is. But yeah, I take that approach. It is important to recognize that, you know, I mean, it shouldn't be a deterrent. Like, you're going to have costs, you're going to have startup costs, especially if you're starting out. I mean, I was a little bit intimidated about getting a storage unit. I was a little bit intimidated about placing a huge Uline order to get bubble wrap and all the rest, and spending $800 at once, you know, to get all of these things, even though now I won't need to do them again for months. But you need to account for them somewhere. And so for me, yeah, I'll go through these weekly sales, but I break it down even further for myself, where I'm looking at every single month. What were those exact costs? Platform fees, storage unit fees. I even allow for some fuel, because especially where I'm in a rural area, so I allow for, you know, a tank of gas every month, basically, to be dedicated just as a reselling expense, because that's what that money is going to be used for. So I don't know that I really have any advice for people other than just to take from that what you will. But definitely beginners. I mean, break it all down. Make sure you're not fooling yourself, because that was something I was guilty of as a new reseller. I was saying, oh, look, I'm making this much money. I'm making $5. I'm making $10. But I wasn't accounting for all of those extras that you don't see on your eBay page or your Poshmark page.
Yeah.
So they are important to note, you know?
They are, for sure. Yeah, and I don't do I just use QuickBooks. So once a week, I'll just put in so this week was, and it changes, right? So for shipping, I had a lot more Poshmark stuff go out. So I think I spent about $150 in shipping costs. That's what went into my QuickBooks this week. A lot of times it's like $250, depends on how many things are sold on platforms where I have to pay for the shipping or not, right? Business expenses, same thing. If I'm buying boxes, those are all caught up in QuickBooks, and then I can kind of look at it that way as the business. But for an actual sale, Poshmark does a really good job at showing you how much money you're going to make. So from there, you really just need to figure out how much did you pay for it, and then that's a good idea of how much money you made. You know, you can go further and look at how much the fees were. I think is Poshmark like 20% now? Do they take?
Poshmark is a flat 20% or a flat $3.95 on anything under $20.
Right.
Under $20, it's actually more than 20% fee, because, you know, if you sell something for $12, it's still a $3.95 fee.
Yeah.
But flat rate, at least you know what it is every time.
Yeah. So Poshmark's pretty straightforward. eBay does have a way more in-depth look. They do have a lot more analytics you can look at. I find it's not always, I guess it's accurate enough because that's what they're using, but sometimes it doesn't show you the whole picture. I like to use this app. It's a free app. It's not sponsored in any way. And I wouldn't say that this app is 100% accurate either, but it's just called eProfit. I don't know if you ever used that before.
I haven't, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very simple. So you say it breaks down categories. So it's a calculator. So you say, I sold this item for $100. It says, how much was shipping? Okay. How much did you charge for shipping? And then it asks you how much you paid for the item. And then it'll ask you for your eBay store category, or if you had it promoted at a certain percent, you can add all those things in and you hit calculate, and it'll tell you how much you made and how much your return on your investment was. And it's pretty good. If you have no idea and you're just out at a store and you're kind of thinking, is this going to be worth my time? It's a great little calculator. You can pull it out of your pocket and you say, hey, I found this little deck of cards. It's collectible. This one is not super expensive, but you could kind of figure out sold comps. You know, you could figure it all out right there if you cared. You know, I'm more of a risk taker. I just buy stuff on a whim more often than not, just because I know the things that sell for me. But if you have no idea, you know, that's how you don't get burned by things. You just spend you do that extra step with a free app like that. You know, you can do it a bunch of different ways. I just know that app doesn't cost any money. It's pretty accurate for eBay, in my opinion, anyway. And it's a good way to know how much money you're making. But then, like I said, there are all these other things that do cost money, like we just talked about, that you kind of have to be mindful of.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you talked about that eBay one, because that prompted a thought for me, kind of a rule of thumb that I use. I don't use that app or any app like it, but, you know, most categories, and just thinking about eBay Canada, I don't know, it probably varies significantly across the world, but you know, in eBay Canada, most categories I sell, and especially clothing, it's going to be somewhere around that 12.5% fee structure. But you have to recognize that fee is applied to the total plus shipping plus taxes plus
Yep.
any promoted amount you've put. So if I'm selling in a category like clothing that's around 12.5% fee structure, I'm actually thinking to myself, because I promote everything at 3%, just right across the board, every single eBay listing, I use 3%. So I basically think to myself, okay, when it's all said and done, all calculated, I'm probably actually going to be paying more like 20% in fees. So that might be a little bit of an overkill, but at least it's a good baseline for me. You know, so if I'm out and I'm like, okay, well, because I can think about Poshmark, that's, you know, that's easy because that's 20%. But if I want to figure out what something will do on eBay, yeah, I'll just kind of do the same thing. I'll just be like, all right, well, if fees were 20%, what would I make? And it works out close enough. That's kind of my rule of thumb that I use anyway.
Yeah. No, I don't think it has to be perfect. You just have to ballpark it. So if you're not, I'm not good at math. I'll be the first one to tell you that. I pay somebody professionally to do my taxes after I put in QuickBooks because I do not trust myself.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I mean,
I do math for a living.
yeah, man, not you wouldn't want me to do your math. I could tell you that, but that doesn't mean that I don't understand numbers and how to make money. It's just I'm just not, my brain doesn't work like that. If I didn't pull out a calculator, I couldn't just think about it and give you the answer. And that's just me being honest about it. So like, you know, over time, it still makes sense. So if you go to the same thrift store and you pay $4.79 for a shirt every time, and you know that shirt's going to sell for $30 plus, I don't really need to do the math. That's going to work for me, right? So, but when you're learning, I do think it is important to understand how much money you're going to actually make in that, you know,
Yeah.
maybe you think $10, $15 profit sounds good, but it might not. At the end of the day, you might actually only be making a couple of dollars.
Exactly. And really that comes down to just being honest with yourself. You know, I mean, only you know what your actual costs are, and include them all in your overall thought process and in your overall assessment of how things are going. I mean, you know, yeah, if you're making $1,000 a month and you think, hey, that's great, that pays my rent or whatever, but then somehow you're still always short, well, maybe it's because you're not accounting for, you know, your shipping supplies, or maybe you're not accounting for whatever it is, right? If you've got a storage space or something. So yeah, you just got to be honest with yourself with what those are, and just go with what works for you. All right, folks. So that is today's episode. Thanks very much for coming and joining us today. Hopefully these tips, these items, these things that we talk about each week do provide some value. Really appreciate the feedback on the videos we've had so far. You know, when I was a new reseller, obviously these are some of the things that came up that I didn't know what I was doing. So we're hoping to help people out. Yeah, let us know down below, and we'll see you in the next episode, guys.